No, that's good. And speaking of writing in your book, talking about what winners don't tell you. Talk to us a little bit about because you talk about this in the book that draft process, like coming into the league and those moments. Can you talk about working for something for so long and finally getting it, and then even just talking about like those moments like a Shedeur where like there's a whole other side of it where you work and it doesn't get you don't get recognized in that moment, but now you have to go out and prove yourself. So just talk about that moment in your life.
Yeah, it's the moment where, the glass kind of shatters and you realize that there is a really stark separation between business and the game. The game, you've convinced yourself that this is a family environment, it's a team, 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 that if you play well, you almost deserve these things. And then you're hit really quickly with that. No, this is a business. Everything that you have, you're allowed to get, that you've been given, and as sometimes must earn, and sometimes, you don't have control in the situation, which is what we just saw with Shedeur. But the only thing you can control is how you show up every day, what you do on the field. And I think that's the beautiful part about the sport is that really we all show up for that game day thing. All of the business, the locker room, gripes and what's happening with ownership and league, that's not what we're here for. We're here to see how y'all come together in spite of all of that and overcome. And I think that's the beautiful part about football. And as I kind of reflected on my time, giving me even a new perspective of how to watch this game, it's kind of the game within the game.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about like playing for these like a range of different leaders? Like even from you got players, so you got like Sean, or your coaches. I got Sean Payton, and you got players like Vilma, Roman Harper, and the list kind of goes on in those spaces. And then talk to us a little bit because in the book you talk about how you had these two kind of sides of your career. You had the New Orleans side, and then you had the Philadelphia side. And Philadelphia is like you really taking over in that leadership spot. So talk about first kind of being a mentee and then being a mentor and kind of what you've learned from different leadership styles.
Yeah, one thing about me is I learn from everything. Like I observe and I try to take notes, even if I'm not explicitly asking questions or saying anything, I'm learning from every example that I have. And so in New Orleans, my first 5 years was really learning a lot from leaders like Drew Brees. I'm watching how he prepared. He'd do small things like he'd throw the ball, and then afterwards he would, with no ball in his hand, he would go through his motion as if he threw three more passes. And he was just going through his reads. And he would do that every single day, no matter his walkthrough and things like that. So you see the habits of greatness. And okay, I take notes there. I can see how Jonathan Vilma, as a defensive captain, had the respect of every coach, every player. What he said went. And it didn't matter if this was a defensive coordinator, head coach, or player. And so you understand what real command looks like. And the reason that he did it is because he was the most prepared on defense. He knew what he was talking about. He was a smart player. So you understood like, okay, respect comes with these habits and these things you do. You don't just get handed these keys. And so I just picked these things up. And when I got to Philadelphia, suddenly I was forced into the situation where now I'm the older leader in the group. And suddenly I'm in the forefront and I pulled on a lot of those references to think about how to navigate these situations. Like, okay, we're not doing well, or as a coach that players aren't feeling, how do I still manage this? I can pull directly from our struggling season in 2012 when we were, losing back. How did the leaders deal with that? I did that my whole career, and I think that's what really made me a dynamic leader is because I was around a bunch of dynamic leaders and learned from each of them. I couldn't do everything, but there were small things that I could take from every person out there and apply it to new situations.
And it hasn't been the same way for like business too. Like, is the same entrepreneurial leadership style that comes with that? Do you see it bleed into entrepreneurship for you?
Even more so, I found myself leaning even more because in football, you're in an environment where everybody is bred like you to be a high performer, to get critique, to be, to be scrutinized daily without taking it personal. Outside of that environment, it is a lot more feelings and like emotions and just nuances to human interaction that you have to navigate. Not everybody's built the same or has the same background. And I found myself having to learn from different leaders on how they, deal with person to person interactions or how they deal with, with conflict or or morale and things like that. You know, where I'm in football, you can just get to the bench, flip over a cooler and get everybody, you know, riled up for the moment. You can't do that in your in your Tuesday business meeting. So
Yes.
I've definitely had to adapt and learn from various folks around me.
Yeah, and to that about like business, because Steve Jobs talks about like make something wonderful, like make something that's like a really great product and give it to the world. Like put your energy, your soul, and everything into it. So even with that, like your love of art and business as a form of art, like how have those things kind of fused together for you to build like really great products, great teams, and all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, one of the things that I've started to focus on was not necessarily trying to create great products. You know, because there are all every day there's something being made. But for me, it's like, how do I solve problems? That was my value as a player. I can solve solutions in real time on the field. That solve problems for myself, my teammates, and my coaches. You know, how do I do that in the real world? It particularly through my skill set. And I love things like art. I love giving back. I love writing. And so what I've figured out is how do I combine all of these to make them work together. So when I'm doing the things that I'm gifted to do, when I'm doing things I enjoy to do, they're actually in alignment with my profession and how I want to give back to the world. So a great example of that is this art auction that we're doing with Phillips. They're doing their annual spring sale, and 6 pieces have been donated from some of my favorite artists, with all proceeds going to the Malcolm Jenkins Foundation to fund our programs across the country. And so that's again another opportunity where we're allowing people, one, to learn about these Black artists and learn about my passion of collecting, to be able to participate in it at a level that is attainable, but then also that participation directly having impact on our programs and going directly to the kids that we service around the country. And we've been doing this work for 15 years.
Yep.
So as I develop as a human, I kind of take my businesses and apply those nuances to it so that we can continue to do the things that we love through the skills that we have and have the highest impact.
If you enjoyed that clip, make sure you head over to www.bookupapp.com to download our app so you can connect with your favorite bookish content creators, start conversations, and start your own book club.